Welcome back, Homebrew Nation. It is I, Bryan and Dragons. Welcome to Let's DM. This is our fifth episode. We're actually cruising along. If you haven't seen the past episodes, what we've been doing is building our own homebrew world from scratch. So, we started by building just a basic map using our incredible map tool incarnate.com. Highly recommended. Then we added geography, we added towns, and we named those towns. So we have a basic beginnings of a world, of a campaign. Now we need to actually start filling it out. Now we're getting into what I like to think of as the most arduous process of building a world, which is adding the necessary components to towns to make the adventure even possible. So what we're trying to add are different buildings, shops, taverns, inns, items like that adventurers are generally going to use in each town. So when we think about what an adventuring party needs when they go into a town, a village, a city, I like to think about it in this way. They need basic supplies. So they're going to need basic weapons, they're going to need basic armor, they're going to need general supplies, pitons, hempen rope, sleeping kits, so on and so forth. And they usually need some kind of healing, a couple of small healing potions, and otherwise just magical supplies, because it is a game filled with magic. I like to have my smallest cities have these items, but just generally condensed. My smallest villages, sorry, not cities. It's easy to use those words interchangeably, isn't it? Whereas I like to have my largest cities, the capital cities, have many different inns, taverns, armories, smiths, so on and so forth. In order to keep things kind of condensed for today, I wanted to at least start with one of our smaller cities. So here you will see the world of Red Tree that we built last time. What I wanted to focus on here is the city of Zusa. So when I conceptualized building the city of Zusa, what I was thinking it would be is some sort of maybe a small logging village. Not a logging camp, but a village where lumber is collected, and that is kind of the main export of this tiny village of Zusa. So be that as it may, be that it is small, what we're really thinking is maybe one tavern in combination, right? We don't have to have just a tavern and an inn. I think in this case, especially, it works better just as one. I would like to have one combined weapon and armor shop that will just generally have as a blacksmith who does basic repairs and sells basic supplies. And I would like to have one basic general store that sells all of your regular average everyday supplies, as well as would have a small cache of just basic healing potions. That is going to give an adventuring party, especially a low level adventuring party, at least what they need to begin the process of navigating through this world, especially if they start close to Zusa, but isn't going to be anything greatly special, we're saying. So when I begin the process of actually filling out my cities, what I really use most is Microsoft OneNote. I would recommend a OneNote subscription. I'm not being paid for this. I've been paying out of my own pocket for Microsoft OneNote or Office 365 for as long as I've been a dungeon master, which has been a fair period of time. I started a new notebook, you'll see down here at the bottom, for the town of Red Tree for Bryans and Dragons. Bryan and Dragons? Bryans and Dragons? We're still figuring that out. And from there, I next start a sub-tab for the town of Zusa. And then we add into it a section for taverns and inns, shops, special shops, and rumors. Now, you'll see other tabs for other worlds that I have homebrewed and I'm currently running, but I'll show you an example of a very large city, the city of Myrmidid, in a different campaign. You'll see that this particular city has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 inns and taverns. I can assure you your party is going to use one or two of these, but I do like to have them available just to be thorough. Likewise, for the shops, you'll see quite a large number of shops, and obviously it makes sense that the shops, taverns, inns, the amount of them is going to correspond to the size of the city. I like to use this particular template, the name, type, owner, description, special wares template, and I copy and paste that throughout all of my Microsoft OneNote to be able to organize these individual buildings in the game. It helps keep things, well, better organized, and the better organized you are as a dungeon master, one, the more it appears as if you've done proper preparation, but really you're just organized, and two, you're going to keep things straight for yourself. So I like to use random generators to be able to create these different buildings. I'm sure many of you, probably most of you, have a wealth of creativity beyond what I have, and maybe would like making these completely yourself, and I would absolutely encourage you to do so. For me, in the time investment that I have to be able to do this, I'm going to go ahead and use random generators. My favorite random generator for taverns, inns, and shops is the Don John Fantasy Inn generator. If you haven't been to Don John's yet, I would highly recommend it. They have some absolutely outstanding generators reference sheets. It's just a wealth of Dungeons and Dragons knowledge, but for today we are going to be specifically using their random inn generator. Otherwise, like we talked about last time, we're going to use fantasynamegenerator.com to create our tavern names as well as our shop names. So I'll show you how I do this. We're just going to go ahead and do one. So once again, we are in the town of Zusa. We are doing a tavern/inn combination. First thing, we are going to pop over to Don John's, and we're just going to make a basic common inn. Patron, will just keep it as townsfolk at this point. And it gives us a lot of this information. And really, honestly, a lot of this process is just copying and pasting. So we're going to go ahead and copy and paste the description. The inn is a single-story building of half-timbered walls with a reinforced wooden door. Accommodations consist of several hammocks in the common room. The inn is widely known for its adventuring patrons. Awesome. Just for my own peace of mind, I know that you can spell story like this. I think they spell it like the UK, but we're gonna take that out, and we are going to change the spelling as well of accommodations. So we have our description for our tavern. You can go with this name, the Mug and Rat, or if you want to, like we were talking about earlier, go with one of these tavern name generators. I'm gonna go with the Salty Bassoon. I like that. I think it has a certain ring to it, and we can maybe make something interesting out of the name. For the type, of course, we are going to do an inn/tavern. If it were just a tavern or just an inn, we would do inn or tavern. But this is an inn/tavern, so we know that they both sell food and drinks. Let's go ahead and find our owner. Let's see, our innkeeper is a short female elf named Minimalia. We're going to go ahead and say the owner is Minnie. Let's go with Minnie Inkip, because she's an innkeeper. See, that's why we use these random name generators. Just so you know, that is the height of my creativity right there, taking innkeeper and making her Minnie Inkip. She is a short female elf who is fascinated by ghosts, and spirits. So what I really love about this very particular part of the Don John generator is that it creates these interesting personalities. We will make sure to attribute them. It makes these interesting personalities, and what I remember, when I first started actually doing this, if you only have 9 cities, villages, or towns in your world, but each one has different inns, taverns, shops, you're still talking about like 40, maybe 50 at the minimum buildings. And if each one of them has an interesting interaction, one, you're going to probably forget what they are until you pull it up on Microsoft OneNote, which is why we're writing it down. But two, it makes your world seem so much more immersive without you having to do any extra work. You just need to pull it up on Microsoft OneNote. There it is. You got an interesting shopkeeper. She has a physical description, and she is fascinated by ghosts, and spirits. Heck, she could be fascinated by goats and spirits. So for the special wares section, that's where I like to add the more interesting stuff that either shops have. So that's where I would put maybe light magic weapons or some +1 stuff or interesting potions. For my taverns and inns, that's where I like to put food. And of course, Don John's random generator will create food for us, which is amazing. Perfect. So this inn is going to be selling stewed veal and oat bread with a tankard of mead. It's going to be selling roasted sausage and whey cheese, also with a tankard of mead. And finally, it's going to sell vegetable stew with a mug of stout, just to mix it up. And bam, that's how we do it. We have our tavern /inn completely set up. And whenever your party gets to your world, whenever they get to your city, you can be assured that you have interesting places for them to go. And that's pretty much it. That's all that there is to it. It's not difficult, but it does take time. So what I would encourage you to do is maybe just set aside 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, where you go through and just add as many of these as you want to each city. It shouldn't take you more than a few weeks if you're doing 30 minutes a day. Actually, probably quite a bit less than that. That feels like a kind of a strange estimation on my part. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I am going to, for 30 minutes a day for the next week, I'm going to add these shops. At our next video, I'll take you through some of my more favorites, and we're going to talk about special shops. Yes, there are Dungeons and Dragons resources for special shops. What I mean by special shops, they're interesting. They sell interesting things. One of my favorite examples is going to come from I don't know if it's Dungeons and Dragons like sanctioned. I think it's aftermarket information, but it is an interesting shops guide that has all kinds of different interesting shops. But one of them that they have is a bazaar where you can go deeper and deeper and find more illicit items. We're going to talk about those, and we're going to add a few interesting shops throughout our world just to add a little bit of je ne sais quoi to our homebrew and our campaign. If you liked this content, please please subscribe. Go back and watch the others. We're just a new and growing channel, so any and all help that you can provide us, the better. Once again, I am Bryan and Dragons, and this is Let's DM with Bryan and Dragons. Go forth and homebrew.